welcome to Summit Pacific's annual Ladies Night Out event. We are thrilled to welcome you virtually this evening and hope you enjoy your time with us. We have a robust evening planned with amazing speakers who are eager to share their wisdom and expertise with you. Of course, we also have some fun raffle prizes throughout the night as well. So sit back and enjoy, and thank you again for joining us. My name is Emily Dillingham, and I am the Director of the Foundation and Community Development here at Summit Pacific, and I'll be your host this evening. I'd like to start out by thanking our two co-presenting sponsors, each of whom have made this event possible for all of us this evening, Amerigroup and Vaughn Company, who have both been with us since the very beginning.
Vaughn Company is excited to be a part of your Ladies Night Health Workshop. For 60 years, Vaughn Company has been dedicated to creating a positive impact in our local community by supporting a wide range of charities and community organizations just like Summit Pacific. Vaughn Company is pleased to be an important part of building the healthiest community in the nation.
Thank you again, Vaughn. So now we will kick off our program, Ladies Night Out, with our very first speaker, Dr. Nicole Taylor. She'll be addressing balancing hormones with nutrition. Dr. Nicole Taylor attended the Southwest College of Naturopathic Medicine in Tempe, Arizona, and has been providing care for over 15 years. She provides family medicine here at Summit with a focus in women's health from adolescence through and beyond menopause. Dr. Taylor has extensive knowledge and experience in hormone replacement therapy, weight management, and aesthetics, and her practice in Arizona was awarded Most Outstanding Health Organization from the Tucson local media. Well, we are grateful to have you, Dr. Taylor. Thank you for being here.
Always a topic or a question that I get pretty much every day with most of my patients. So this year I want to focus on balancing hormones the most natural way, which would be through your diet, through nutrition. There are many reasons why bioidentical hormone replacement therapy or hormones in general may not be indicated for someone. Also, many people just don't want to be on any synthetic or additional hormones. So this is a nice, easy, straightforward way that you can support your hormones and through all the different ages from the time that you start menstruating before and through menopause with the most natural way. So let's get started. So hormone imbalances happen through all the life stages. So again, from when a woman starts menstruating through perimenopause, which is that period of about 10 to 15 years before you stop actually menstruating. And then postmenopause, which is considered 1 year after you've stopped menstruating, then you're technically menopausal. Many symptoms, though, can start of menopause at the ages of 35 and up. And then we'll talk specifically about those imbalances and how the foods can actually benefit you through all those stages. So first question may be, well, do I have a hormonal imbalance? So here's a nice list of some common symptoms that women may experience through their lifetime. Again, from the time of bleeding, actually even leading up to, we can think about if you have daughters or even yourself, if you were kind of a crabby 10, 11, 12-year-old, or if you have a daughter and you notice some changes, those are hormone fluctuations happening. So again, from bleeding through menopause and beyond. And irregular menstrual bleeding, so an irregular menstrual cycle, the normal menstrual cycle, I say normal, that has been established is bleeding every 28 to 32 days. So irregular would be bleeding more often than that or later than that. PMS, so symptoms that happen typically in that 1 to 2 weeks before you actually get your period. And those can range pretty significantly depending on the person, where it could just be some breast tenderness or bloating, insomnia, mood changes, which could include irritability and being more emotional or weepy, more depressive symptoms for sure, and anxiety. Acne, hair loss or thinning hair, hot flashes, night sweats, weight gain that doesn't seem to be pertaining to any particular reason, okay? Excessive hair growth in places that we don't want it. Muscle weakness, so kind of loss of muscle weakness, atrophying of the muscles. Infertility, so having difficulty, getting pregnant or maintaining pregnancy as well. Recurrent miscarriages, joint pain. The joint pain is a very interesting symptom associated with hormonal imbalances, actually, that most people would not think that could be caused by hormones, but I see a lot of menopausal women who have a lot of hip and shoulder pain, and they improve when we balance out their hormones. So anxiety, depression, and irritability, and that can also be not just during that premenstrual time, but I notice a lot of women during perimenopause and menopause start to have significant increases in their normal anxiety and depressive symptoms. Decreased libido, so low sex drive, fatigue, and headaches. So these are some ideas of things you start thinking about yourself and, and question whether what you're feeling could be a hormonal imbalance. So generally speaking, I speak about nutrition and diet a lot, all the time. If you're my patient, we talk about this all the time, and it's somehow integrated into all of my talks. But in general, if we just generally speak about the way you should be eating for good hormonal balance, but this diet also would help with cardiac and diabetes and lots of other chronic conditions. So a diet that's low in simple carbohydrates, so those are going to be primarily your white flour foods, white breads, sugar, processed foods, excess alcohol, and fried foods. And what you would want to focus on is a diet that's a little higher in fiber. So those complex carbohydrates, the whole grains, they're going to have a lot more fiber. And we're going to learn about how that's going to help our hormones, lean meats, vegetables, and fruits. So just a little overview of, generally speaking, what you should be doing. But we're going to dive into the top foods. So there's 7. I was trying to go for the top 12 or top 10, but really, there's really 7 big, I would say, categories or specific foods that would benefit you the most. So the first one is going to be your beans, your legume family. The beans are high in phytoestrogens, so that's a common term you might hear when you're researching herbs that are beneficial for hormone balancing. So beans have a lot of phytoestrogens. What phytoestrogens actually do is they help displace the negative bad estrogens in our body. And so they actually mimic estrogen, but they're food plant-based estrogens. So safer, healthier. Sex hormone binding globulin, so that's what I wrote on here, is that it increases sex hormone binding globulin. And we're going to talk about this a little bit. Try not to get too complex, but sex hormone binding globulin is a protein that we have in our body that hormones, specifically testosterone and estrogen, bind to, and it carries it to where we would want it to be, okay? So if you have too high levels of testosterone or too high levels of estrogen, we want to increase sex hormone binding globulin so that it binds it up and that you're not being affected by it as much, okay? And then there's instances where we may want to decrease sex hormone binding globulin to naturally increase testosterone levels. So again, beans, phytoestrogens in general, decrease those harmful estrogens. And these would be symptoms or conditions that you might want to think about integrating them if you have these. So hot flashes, infertility, fatigue, depression, trouble focusing, and painful intercourse, okay? The recommendation would be about a half a cup per day of beans of any kind. There's a lot of talk and research focused on soy, specifically speaking with breast cancer and is soy safe or not safe. And it's we're at a point where we're pretty neutral about it. So anything in excess is going to ultimately be detrimental, probably. So soy is the same thing. It's a phytoestrogen. It does not cause cancer. They have confirmed that it is safe with cancer, but again, in moderation and in its most natural form and preferably organic, okay? So again, half a cup per day of just beans in general. Second group is the cruciferous vegetables. So these are going to be all of those collard greens, cabbage, broccoli, Brussels sprouts, okay, kale. What cruciferous vegetables do is they actually work on the liver, so they help increase your liver detoxification of harmful estrogens. So again, here we are talking about estrogen again. Estrogen excess tends to cause most hormonal problems before menopause. Okay, so endometriosis, fibroids, excessive bleeding, irregular bleeding. Okay, so that's why a lot of these are focused on decreasing those harmful estrogens. So these are some symptoms, again, focused on if you want to focus, on decreasing bloating, breast tenderness, anxiety, panic attacks, fibrocystic breasts, tissue, which many women have, weight gain, and trouble sleeping, you might want to consider adding in about very, very small amount. It doesn't actually take a lot. So half a cup per day or 2.5 to 4 cups per week of cruciferous vegetables. Now, what's really interesting about these is you want to be cautious and again, not overdo it. So when there was the major flux of interest in kale and people juicing kale and eating kale, it actually caused a lot of people to have thyroid issues, actually a low functioning thyroid. There's a substance in cruciferous vegetables that actually inhibits your body to absorb iodine, which then can cause thyroid issues. So you just want to be careful about your intake. Flax seeds, so specifically ground. So you'll see a lot of products, in nutrition, health products that have flaxseed, but they're actually whole. You would want to ingest about 2 tablespoons of ground flax. You could sprinkle it on veggies, you can put it on a salad. These are really high in omega-3s. They're also a phytoestrogen, high in fiber. And again, increasing sex hormone binding globulin. Increasing sex hormone binding globulin, which would then decrease testosterone. If you have conditions such as PCOS, polycystic ovarian syndrome, or elevated testosterone levels that were found via labs, this is what you would want to integrate into your diet. Also, bloating, breast tenderness, anxiety, panic attacks, these are all of those kind of excess estrogen type issues. Number 4, this is going to be everyone's favorite, dark chocolate. So dark chocolate has a lot of benefits. 1 ounce per day is the serving recommendation, if you can stop there. But this dark chocolate's high in magnesium, and magnesium is actually required in all hormone production. But specifically, and this is really interesting because our body is very smart, so a lot of women will say when they have PMS, right, they're craving, I crave chocolate, or I crave specific foods or sugar. Well, chocolate does decrease symptoms of PMS, PCOS as well, perimenopausal symptoms, anxiety, and insomnia. So it's helping, magnesium is a mineral that's very relaxing and calming, and you will be able to get some of that through some dark chocolate. Wild salmon. So wild salmon specifically, because it's very high in vitamin D, and again, vitamin D is an actual hormone, vitamin, steroid, which you need actually for hormone production as well. So wild salmon, if you're looking to improve your testosterone levels, so increasing libido, energy, focus, increasing muscle mass and strength, you would want to focus on eating some wild salmon, about 3.5 ounces, 2 to 3 times a week would be optimal. And there are some other fatty fishes that are also beneficial, but this is one that most people I would say can tolerate. Okay, number 6, complex carbohydrates. So those are going to be your oats, barley, rye, brown rice, wild rice, many of your gluten-free grains, as well as whole wheat, and then some of your starchy vegetables too we can consider healthy, like the sweet potatoes. So these are high in fiber. Again, they bind excess estrogens and help your body move them out via the colon, to be blunt. So these help stabilize your blood sugar as well. So I do notice a lot of women who do pretty strict low carbohydrate diets, really restrictive like keto, will tend to actually have worsening in their hormonal symptoms. So, again, everything is very personalized, when you're doing a particular food plan or diet plan. But if you're having hormonal imbalances, it may not be the best plan for you. So integrating a small serving of whole grains would really benefit you, specifically also during that premenstrual period to help balance moods. It also helps stabilize blood sugar, which in turn also will help with mood. It also increases serotonin levels, which drop premenstrually. And then the last food that I thought was really interesting was sunflower seeds. They're really high in vitamin E. These actually help increase progesterone levels. So that's that time focused during the 2 weeks before you plan on having a menstrual cycle. And then definitely perimenopausally and after menopause, women will tend to have pretty drastic decreases in progesterone levels. So thinking of PMS, insomnia, depression and anxiety, about 1/4 cup per day would be a really good amount. Again, just eating them like that or just adding them to your food. And if you are really interested, you could look into something called seed cycling. And it's totally focused on eating seeds throughout your menstrual cycle to balance your hormones. And it's very involved. But I've had a few patients actually do this on their own, and they've relieved their hot flashes and they just feel way better. So those are the top 7 I would say would be wonderful for you to be able to integrate into your diet if you can, and especially if you're looking to avoid doing any type of hormone support or hormone supplementation. That's it for this evening for me.
Wow, thank you, Dr. Taylor. This was so much information. I'm scribbling down notes here. It's just so valuable for all of us tuning in. For those of you watching, please use the chat feature to type in any questions for Dr. Nicole Taylor about hormone imbalance and treating that through food. And while we're waiting for some of those questions to come through, I have a couple that were emailed to us in advance and sent to us through Facebook. So first one, let's see. Somebody says, I have trouble focusing after lunch and often feel fuzzy-headed. What foods should I avoid?
Well, I think one important thing would be to make sure that you actually are eating a pretty good sized substantial meal. So there are typically, in my experience, 2 issues usually when someone has that symptom is depending on what they've done that morning, if they've actually eaten breakfast, or if they're fasting, so doing some intermittent fasting, that meal is pretty important. And so for one, it should be a pretty substantial size meal. And secondly, it should be really heavily focused on protein and healthy fats, along, of course, with veggies. I find that basically what's happening right after lunch is if you maybe haven't eaten for 5 or 6 hours before that point, and then you have lunch, which would include, let's say a sandwich, so you have some bread, or you're having pasta, or you're having, let's say, Chinese food or something that's a little bit heavier on the carb side, you're getting a very sharp increase in your blood sugar levels. And then pretty much, that hour to 2 hours later, you're diving. Yeah, so your blood sugar's dropping. It's this reactive hypoglycemic situation. And ultimately, that's your symptom. It's foggy, tired, moody, can't focus. So it would be eat a substantial size meal and make sure that there's a good size protein portion to it, 4 to 6 ounces, with nice healthy fats, and vegetables.
Got it. Thank you, Dr. Taylor. Well, everybody, you've heard that here, so no excuses for being foggy brained after lunch anymore. One more, you were talking about whole grains, and we know that bread has whole grains in it, but when you mention things like having a sandwich or maybe too much pasta or something like that, how would someone know what type of bread to look for? Are any breads okay if they have whole grains in them?
So you would want to focus on a bread that's minimally processed. So, one easy rule is stay away from anything white, stay away from pure white bread, and focus on the ones that are a little heavier with maybe seeds. They look brown. That's just true. They look a little more dense. You'll see like Ezekiel. It'll say whole grain, but not, it's deceiving because whole wheat isn't necessarily a better choice.
Got it.
So you want to look for those breads that look a little more complex, have a little more pure ingredients, in the back. And my trick with that is, like one great example is Dave's Killer Bread. Okay, so that's a really good bread option. And what I've done in the past, and I, coach people to do is really literally look at all the breads, turn them around, look at their total carb amount, and then look at the fiber and pick the one that has the highest level of fiber. Okay. So that will help okay, I'm getting a really good amount of fiber, and then I'm also eating the bread that likely has the lowest amount of carbs that's going to affect your brain and maybe cause some weight gain. And cut back in serving sizes. So if you would normally have maybe a sandwich with 2 slices, maybe do half a sandwich and, a side salad instead.
Sounds good. Okay, cool. Thank you, Dr. Taylor. It looks like we do have one question that came in. Someone says, what if I don't like dark chocolate? How about milk chocolate? Will that suffice? I think I know the answer.
Well, it's not the same, but the darker the chocolate, the higher the level of the actual antioxidants and magnesium. But if you're just doing 1 ounce, honestly, and you actually do feel better and your hormones feel more balanced and you're happy, I think that's fine.
Great. Okay, wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Taylor. I feel like we could just talk all night. I have so many questions for you myself, but this is really helpful, and I know all of our audience is grateful as well. So we're grateful to have you back again this year. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Sure. All right. Next, I'd like to thank one of our newest sponsors. We are so pleased to have a partnership with Dr. Stephen Edwards and Dr. Kathy Siebert at Elma Family Dental, our friends and neighbors just up the street from Summit Pacific. So thank you, Elma Family Dental, for your support tonight. I'd also like to thank our loyal supporters and partners in crime here in Elma, our Health Mart Pharmacy with 3 locations in downtown Elma, East County here adjacent to the Wellness Center, and in downtown McCleary, right next to our McCleary Clinic. So thank you, Health Mart Pharmacy, for your support as well. Our next speaker is Wilt Canavan, And he will be speaking on women's heart health, so something that pertains to all of us tuning in. Of course, men and women, but women's symptoms of heart disease are different, and I know Will be unpacking a lot of that for us. So a little information on Will. He received his master's in science with a focus on exercise physiology from Central Washington University in 2017. He has been a strength and conditioning specialist for 4 years and a physiologist for 1 year. Will joined Summit Pacific on April 1st, no joke, 2021. We're glad you're here. And his main areas of interest are in strength training of clinical populations, sports conditioning, exercise, and metabolic change as a result of sedentarism. Will is currently in a competitive dodgeball league and is in the process of preparing for his first skydive. Well, thank you, Will, for coming here first. We're glad to have you.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. So this, unlike Dr. Taylor, this is my first time at Ladies Night Out, and hopefully I get asked back again. See how this goes.
I have to say, Will, before you start, I took Will's boot camp here at Summit, and it definitely helped whip me into shape. So we're grateful to have him here and his expertise. So thanks. Take it away, Will.
Thank you so much. So over the next 20 to 25 minutes, we're going to try and cover a few things. I'm going to get through them as best as I can because there's quite a few. We're going to go over heart anatomy first, but there won't be a quiz, so we're good there. We're going to go over cardiovascular disease in general, and we're going to kind of hone in on coronary artery disease as it's the most common. We're going to look at how awareness has changed regarding knowledge of heart disease over the last decade. We'll look at risk factors and how to mitigate them, and then we'll just talk some exercise. It's going to be good. Okay, so what is cardiovascular disease? It is a collection of disorders that affect your heart, your arteries, and your veins. So coronary artery disease is the most common, and it's the most common cause of heart attacks. So you also have cerebrovascular, which kind of leads to stroke. We have peripheral artery disease, which is kind of a cause of claudication or the really nasty leg pain you sometimes get going up hills. There's also rheumatic disease as a result of rheumatic fever. We have congenital heart disease, which is more of a genetic issue. And then we have deep vein thrombosis, which is just clotting in your veins or your venous vasculature. Okay. So we're going to start off with coronary artery disease. So first part of the anatomy lesson here, if I can find the mouse. So this is affecting your different coronary arteries. So in addition to pumping blood to your body systemically through the aorta, we also have the coronary arteries that are responsible for pumping blood to the heart itself. So you have your left coronary artery that breaks into the circumflex. We have one that descends the left anterior artery. Those are both responsible for providing blood to your left atria and ventricle. And then you have your right coronary artery that splits into the right posterior descending artery. And that's responsible for making sure your SA node or your pacemaker has enough blood to keep functioning. Kind of important. You have your left or your right atrium and your right ventricle as well. So we're going to kind of go into how atherosclerosis affects your coronary arteries. So in a healthy heart, we're just going to have mainly fatty streaks, and that happens fairly early in life, about your teen years, so that's kind of normal. But what happens over time if our lifestyle isn't, if we're not sufficiently watching what we eat and we're not exercising frequently, we can start to get what we call plaque, which is a combination of fat and calcium, basically. So over time, plaque will build up within the arteries, and we'll kind of make our way down that bottom right. We'll start to get some fatty deposits. So what will happen then is your body starts to attack these over time, and you'll start to, send white blood cells at them, and this is going to create some inflammation within that area. Okay, so the inflammation will lead to other cells to move into the area to try and cover that streak or that plaque with a little bit of a fibrous cap. And sometimes what can happen is that can break, and that will lead platelets to come back, and that will attach more things to that ruptured area. So what eventually happens, as we look at that bottom right again, we get more and more occlusion of your coronary arteries. So this is when you start to experience things like angina. Now, if we have a complete occlusion, that's kind of when we reach that stage of having a heart attack. Okay, so why is this important? Well, cardiovascular disease, each year kills around 18 million people. So to put that in a different perspective, if you took the population of Washington, Oregon, Idaho, and Colorado, that's about the same number of people. So you're getting rid of about 4 states a year, and that's an insanely ludicrous number. So this is actually the cause of about a third of all deaths, just bar none. So it's a rampant problem. In the US, roughly 650,000 people pass away because of cardiovascular disease. And of those 650,000, almost half are women. So if you look at Go Red for Women, which is a new health initiative from the American Heart Association, they'll say that the affliction is the cause of 1 out of every 3 deaths, and that equates to the passing of a woman every 60 seconds. So this presentation is roughly 20 to 25 minutes. So between when we started and when we ended, we may not have as many people with us anymore. And what's more heartbreaking is that it's very preventable. So I'm going to kind of switch gears into awareness, as awareness is kind of your first defense against this issue. So American Heart Association began a longitudinal study where they started in 2009 with a survey that asked women to kind of identify what they thought was a leading cause of death within their gender. But we've seen some, less than great results 10 years post. So what we see in our first column here is within my age group, 25 to 34, the odds of correctly identifying heart disease as a leading cause of death has dropped by 41%. So in 35 to 44, it's dropped by 18%. 45 to 64, it's dropped by 22. So we are less likely to perceive heart disease as a legitimate threat over the past 10 years. And instead, cancer, or feeling that cancer is a leading cause of death, has increased 26% in 25 to 34-year-olds. It's increased by 9.4% in those 35 to 44, 14% in 45 to 64. Not a big increase in that for 65 and up. Interestingly, it's also increased in the breast cancer group, as you can see on the far right column. What's also interesting is that if you compare breast cancer and heart disease kills often 7 times as many people. So we're going to kind of switch into signs and symptoms, just so the slide following will make a bit more sense. So it's going to be another awareness slide, sort of like this. Signs and symptoms. So they manifest themselves differently based on gender. So in the males, fairly typical squeezing, chest pressure, pain, jaw, neck, or back pain, nausea, vomiting, sometimes shortness of breath. Female signs and symptoms vary quite a bit. You don't always experience chest pain or pressure in the lower chest or upper abdomen sometimes occurs. There's pain in the jaw, neck, or upper back. Shortness of breath sometimes without chest discomfort. And based on the research, that sometimes lead to someone being told that it's just kind of an anxiety response. Fainting sometimes occurs. There's indigestion from time to time, extreme fatigue, and pain or discomfort in one or both arms. So we bring those things up as we go into signs and symptoms awareness, which kind of follows a similar trend. So between 2009 and 2019, the different groups, you can see that overall there is a decrease in awareness of each of these signs and symptoms. So over the past 10 years, we're less likely to recognize chest pain as being a sign or symptom of a heart attack, less likely to understand or realize that pain that spreads to the shoulders or down the arms is indicative of something that's wrong, as is shortness of breath, numbness, nausea, pain in the jaw, etc. So we have a little bit of work to do. So what we're going to try and do is, over the next few slides, talk about how we can mitigate some of your risk factors. So what we're going to do essentially is kind of create or use this information to create better habits so we don't have to worry about this issue at all. So one of the big things we can manage first and foremost is blood pressure. So blood pressure is kind of the most common cause of cardiovascular disease. And what you want to shoot for, based on our little table here in the middle, is a BP that's around 120/80. If you can get it below that, super. So first number is systolic. If you don't know, that's the amount of pressure that's in the artery as your heart pumps, in what's called systole. The second number is the diastolic number, which is the amount of pressure that's in your vasculature during the heart when it's filling, or diastole. So American Heart Association has a few tips to help you out with your blood pressure, and that is to eat vegetables, fruits, legumes, like Dr. Taylor had mentioned. Another big thing is to move as much as you can. You want to manage your weight. Try to smoke. Just don't smoke. Let's make it that simple. And you want to try and get as much sleep as you can, at least 6 hours. Okay, so the big reason to do this is because increased blood pressure raises the incidence rate of atherosclerosis 2 to 3 times more than those that are normotensive or those that are around 120/80. And coronary artery disease is actually the most common consequence of high blood pressure. So for people that are 40 to 70 years old, the risk of heart attack and stroke increases for every 20-point jump in systolic pressure and every 10-point jump in diastolic. So if we go from 120/80 to 140/80, we've increased our chances of having a stroke or heart attack. Okay, so number 2 is controlling your cholesterol. So you have 2 types. You have HDL, and then you have LDL, which is more the bad one. You also have VLDLs, but we won't get too much into that today. So these are responsible for transporting blood or transporting fats throughout your body in your blood. Now, it's important to control these because these are what kind of leads to the atherosclerotic issue we talked about earlier with vessel occlusion. So some tips for success here is, again, to eat as well as you can. Try and get your fruits and vegetables, good meats of the right kind of fat, preferably unsaturated. You need to move more. Again, don't smoke. That's going to come up on a few more of these slides. You can't hammer that home enough. And then take medication as directed. Okay, so the big reason why we need to control cholesterol is, according to data by the CDC, benefits of LDL are age-related. A 10% decline in your serum cholesterol drops your risk of CVD by 50% in those that are around 40. So as we go up, the percentage is going to change just a little bit, but the amount this helps you is astounding. So by those that are at age 50, your chance of getting a CVD drops 40% if you have that 10% decline. So say if our cholesterol is about 100 or 120, if we bring that to 110, we've already dropped your risk. So kind of continuing down the list, if we drop by 10%, that's a 3% decrease in your risk of cardiovascular disease if you're 60. Conversely, if we have an increase in your HDL, your good cholesterol, that results also in a decline in coronary artery disease risk by about 3%. So if you have a pen or a pencil, I'd write down the goal here. They didn't mention it on this slide, but you want to shoot for about 50 to 60 milligrams per deciliter as your HDL number, and that can be done with diet and exercise. So next one, managing blood sugar. So the main goal here is to just prevent diabetes as best you can, as this kind of relates to whole body inflammation, and then we can really kind of jumpstart the atherosclerotic process. So we want to try and shoot for a blood glucose of around 100 milligrams per deciliter. If we get 100 to 125, we start getting into that pre-diabetic range, and if we're over 126, we need to kind of right the ship a little bit. So some tips for success, same kind of deal. We're going to eat smart. We're going to try and eat more fiber, more vegetables, try and get whole grains, legumes, nuts. We want healthy fats. We need to manage weight as well. We're going to try and move as much as we can. So this is more my expertise here. So becoming more active. So 150 minutes and 75 minutes, that comes from the American College of Sports Medicine, and that's kind of where you want to start. That's not where you should necessarily finish. That's a good goal to begin with, however. So you want to try and get at least 150 minutes of aerobic activity a week. or 75 minutes of vigorous activity each week. If you can, add some strength training as well. We'll get a little bit more into that towards the back third of this presentation. But the main thing is just to move as much as you can. So some tips for success here is make some realistic goals that you can challenge yourself with, but you know you can still attain. So let's say you want to go on a 2-mile hike. Let's try and break that down to walks of maybe a half mile, and then we can build our way up to 2. Okay, try and get as many walks in as you can, and then it will add up over time. And as we stay consistent, it's going to feel a bit more like a compulsion. It's going to be a habit at that point, and it's going to be far more likely to happen. Okay, so Dr. Taylor kind of touched on some of these things, so I'll just briefly go over it. So eating better, we're just going to kind of go with our vegetables, fruits. We want some fats from ocean-based fish like our wild salmon, things of that nature. We want to try and limit sweetened drinks, things that are really salty, refined carbs like white bread, like was alluded to earlier. Limit things like candy, cakes, things like that, and completely avoid trans fats that are sometimes found in cooking oils and chips. They've kind of cut down on that a little bit through regulations, but they're still every now and then found. You want to try and watch your calories. My Plate is a really good resource to do that with. They kind of color coordinate your plate so you can kind of break things into food groups. Cook at home, or cooking at home is a good way to kind of watch what you're consuming, since you know exactly what's going into what you're making. And then try and be cognizant of the salty 6, which is in the bottom right there, which is breads, rolls, pizza, which is one of my favorites, so that's hard to see. Sandwiches, cold cuts, cured meats, soups, and try to not to expose yourself too much to burritos or tacos that have a lot of flour. Okay, managing weight. You want to try and control the amount of calories that come in, and you want to try and increase as best you can the amount of calories that are going out or being burnt. So that's a sign of exertion. We want more of that, absolutely. Another useful tool is the BMI. This is just a quick way to kind of guess if your weight is appropriate for how tall you are. But what's kind of not great about it is if you played a sport or you have a bit more muscle mass, it's going to skew your results a little bit, and it's going to make you appear that you're not quite within your right weight range. So it'll make you appear a little bit heavier just in terms of your score. So an easy way to break that down, if you're curious at home, you take your weight in pounds and you divide it twice by your height in inches, and then you multiply that by 703, and that'll give you your BMI score. So again, for kind of controlling the calories coming in, you can use portion control apps such as My Plate. Get Active is probably the easiest way to do it, and then kind of reducing calories as well as just being mindful of what you're eating. And then if you need help, there are resources here at Summit. Sarah Carosino, the dietitian in the therapy department, is a fantastic resource. If you would like to talk to someone, definitely talk to your primary care as well. And lastly, we're going to talk about tobacco. So smoking is the most preventable cause of death in the U.S. It's kind of responsible for 1/3 of all cardiovascular disease issues and 90% of all lung cancers. So big thing is it's going to impact your cholesterol as well, as we'll see on the next slide. But the big thing is try and quit within the next 7 days, as your cardiovascular disease risk drops precipitously as soon as you quit. So choose a method as best you can, whether that be cold turkey or gradually. Okay, decide if you need help from a healthcare provider. Prepare for your quit day by planning how to deal with cravings and urges, and quit on your quit day as best you can. So some tips for success is, in order to devise some strategies to help you deal with urges when you feel one coming on. So try and find a different way of kind of satisfying that habit that's been created. Be active. Try and handle that stress so we are less likely to experience some cravings. You can try some yoga, you can go on some walks, just whatever you think is your most appropriate way of kind of bringing your stress levels down. And plus, you can always get support. Okay, so Reasons to stop tobacco use: doubles your risk of mortality from an ischemic event such as a heart attack or a stroke. And if you're under 50, the risk of developing coronary heart disease is 10 times greater than those of non-smokers. So we've kind of taken a broad spectrum view at this. We looked at how this has affected people worldwide, how it's affected those in the US, and now we're going to kind of bring it a little closer to home in Grace Harbor. So we have here health risk behaviors, chronic disease presence, and health risk conditions in people that are 18 and over. So you can see on the top left, insufficient physical activity is based on that standard error bar. It could be quite a bit higher than the state average or a little bit lower. Smoking cigarettes, bottom left of the top left graph is higher than the state average by 8%. If we look at chronic disease, it's not too much higher than the state average, but we are higher than the norm. So 7% compared to the average of 6%. Diabetes is a little bit higher. If we look at health risk conditions, we are significantly higher in high cholesterol in this county as we are in high blood pressure and obesity. So we're kind of in a prime position to we're not exactly where we should be. So we're going to kind of go about how to mitigate some of those problems next. So we're going to do that via exercise, or this is one strategy we can use in addition to nutrition and pharmaceuticals if your doctor has prescribed some. So my exercise recommendations for you guys is a combination of intervallic aerobic exercise, especially for those that feel that they have a little bit more of a time crunch. Okay, so this doesn't need to be an hour long. This can be as little as 30 minutes. Okay, so before we get into a little workout regimen I've put together, this is a tool I'd like you to have and use. So this is a perceived exertional scale that goes from 1 to 10. So 1 is very light activity. Just pretend you're on the couch watching some Bridgerton. So we have light activity, that's a 2 to 3. So it feels like you can maintain that for hours, just kind of easy to breathe and carry conversation. We go to 4 to 6, which is moderate activity. This is, we're starting to breathe a little bit heavier. We have vigorous activity. You can barely speak, so you have to kind of catch your breath in order to deliver a sentence if you're running with somebody, for example. Very hard activity. We're pushing, it's hard, we're puffing, and max effort, we're sprinting, and we're gonna pass out here pretty soon if we go too far. So what we're gonna use this for is for when we exercise. So this is just an example of a aerobic interval prescription here, fairly basic, but 30 minutes is what we're going to get out of this, and we're already a fifth of the way there through our weekly requirement as seen by the AHA and the ACSM. So how this works is we'll have a 5-minute warm-up, 1 minute fast at that 6 or 7 level there between moderate and vigorous, and we're going to alternate that with 1 minute fairly slow at that nice and easy kind of 3 to 4 range so you can recover. We're going to shoot for about 10 times there. That'll give you 10 minutes of hard work, 10 minutes of light duty, sandwiched between 2 kind of lighter rides. So this works with any kind of aerobic activity. This could be rowing, biking, walking, jogging, running, completely up to you. And it's a very easy way to get in better shape. So what I would recommend is to follow up an aerobic exercise program like this with some strength training. So we're going to shoot for about 2 to 4 sets of 8 to 15 reps, and we're going to make it circuit-based so your heart rate stays up, and this is going to help you become more efficient, and it's going to help your heart be healthier quite quickly. This is something we do downstairs in the cardiac program. So for the weight training, we want the RPE to be between 5 and 8, so moderately hard to fairly difficult. And you want to try and break this into 3 different moves. So we'll have some kind of pushing movement like a push-up or like a press. So if you're familiar with gym terminology, like an overhead press is just strictly going up over. So you have inclines, which is kind of pushing out at an angle. And you'll follow that up with, say, like a sit-up or a plank. It can be anything you want that works the front of your stomach, that works that six-pack area, rectus abdominis. And then you're going to do a lower body exercise, such as a squat. That could be body weight. It could be a lunge, completely up to you. But we're going to try and go through that 2 to 4 times. You're going to rest, and then we'll begin a second set or a second sequence, which will be constituted of rows or more back-based movements. Movements such as the bird dog for the core, and then we'll be doing things that work more of your glutes and your hamstrings, such as deadlifts and things of that nature. And that will also take you about 30 minutes. So the way you can break this up, if you so wish, is you can either alternate your days of aerobic activity and strength, say Monday's aerobic, Tuesday's strength, etc. Or you can do them both on the same day and then follow it up with just like a nice walk the next day. Okay, so the benefits of combining aerobic activity and strength is, per a study by Schrodinger et al., you can improve your diastolic blood pressure. So as we saw earlier, any 10-point increase increases your risk of cardiovascular disease. A 10-point drop also reduces your risk. So we're also going to increase muscle mass, which is going to help with our blood sugar. And we're going to actually increase your strength and cardiorespiratory fitness faster than you would be able to if you did just running or just strength training. You'll also see benefits in your blood lipids. You're going to have reduced stress levels, which is typically seen after as soon as one exercise session. You're going to notice some reduced systolic blood pressure if we stay consistent, and we're going to lose some weight. So it's going to be great. So the main goal here is to notice that exercise doesn't have to be agonizing like we see the poor person at the top here. It can be pretty fun if we know how to set it up. So I would like for you to use some of the things we've seen today and just kind of come up with an exercise program that you find fun, and we should be able to get ourselves on a pretty good track to where we don't have to worry about as many risk factors as long as we stay consistent.
Great. Thank you so much, Will. This is a lot of amazing information. I have a few questions for you, but I also have received a couple so far. While we wait for people to type them into the chat, I figured out how to view them on Facebook here, so we'll give folks a couple minutes. But a couple that got emailed to us in advance. One is just what you were exactly speaking about. Someone says, I am 62 and have never liked exercise. How do I start such a daunting task? So maybe what's one type of exercise that someone who never exercises could start with?
We're trying to get the sound ready. So I would begin with just nice and easy walks. Or you said this was emailed previously?
Yes, yeah, a 62-year-old.
Okay.
Who said, I don't like exercise, where do I start?
Yeah, I would, if you can find a group as well that kind of walk around with you, that'd be great. But I would start off with just getting up and kind of walking outside and just enjoying the scenery for now. Just make that manageable chunks, maybe 10 minutes, a couple times a day to start. And then you can break that into, maybe I'll try a 30-minute walk the next week. That's probably the easiest way to start. If there's a recumbent bike in the home or anything, that would be a pretty good way to begin as well. We can use the interval format we talked about, just 1 minute on, 1 minute off. I had my grandmother do that. She's 76. She just started now doing the 1 minute off for the first few weeks. Now she's riding like 8 miles a day. She's nailing it.
So like you said, it all adds up, right? We just
Yeah,
start small
absolutely.
and you'll get there. Terrific. Let's see, what else? Someone else is asking, what if I've been smoking most of my life, and we're talking decades here? Will quitting now really help me prevent heart disease? Oh, looks like we lost Will.
Can you repeat the question one more time?
Oh, yeah. Someone says, let's see, what if I've been smoking most of my life, and we're talking decades here? Would quitting now really help me prevent heart disease?
Based on what the American Heart Association says, yes, it will begin almost immediately. So over the course of a year, you will decrease your risk substantially. So if you can get on it now, please do it.
Great. Okay. Well, thank you so much, Will. We're grateful to have you here at Summit, and be sure you schedule an appointment with Will.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to have you guys here. I'm a resource for all of you, so please reach out if you ever feel you need to.
Thank you so much. All right. Well, while we are waiting on these slides, I'm excited to say that our next step is to do our raffle. So let's see here. We've got our trusty raffle machine, and our first raffle prize is a gift bag with nice comfy socks, a drink tumbler, and a tea bag set. So let's see who our first winner is. All right, and for our tea set, our first winner, grab one of these. We had 150 of you sign up, so who's our lucky winner? The first prize is Rayanne Edwards. So thank you, Rayanne. We'll contact you tomorrow to figure out when to pick up your prize. There we go. Thank you. And then our next one is a similar gift bag, but with some shower steamers. So these are great. You just put them on the ground, and it's some great little self-care kit. And they steam up your shower. So we'll mix them all up again. And the winner of our shower steamer gift set is Paula Luna Castro. So again, we'll call you tomorrow and figure out how to get you your gift prize. Thank you. And our third one, we have 3 more that we'll do at the end of the program. So our third one for right now is another gift package with socks, a drink tumbler, and a picture frame. And it is a Burt's Bees hand care kit. So add on to that wellness. We'd like to focus on the whole body. And we'll spin this one last time. And drum roll, our winner of the hand care kit is Linda Fitzgerald. We'll give you a call tomorrow. Thank you. Terrific. Fun spinner there. Well, we are grateful as well to our sponsor of the gift bags. Those of you who registered, we had 150 registrants who are tuning in tonight and also can log in at a later time to watch this program. And all of you received gift bags as a courtesy of Radia and our other sponsors. So thanks for coming to pick those up here at Summit Pacific. Next up, I am pleased to announce our third speaker, Michelle King, who will be addressing gastroenterology and hepatology at Summit Pacific, our newest service line here. Michelle King has been a nurse for over 16 years and graduated last year with her bachelor's degree from Brandman University. She joined Summit Pacific in February. Michelle's area of expertise is in healthcare leadership and team building. She loves to take a great team and make them better by showing them where they shine, and she's terrific at it. A little known fact about Michelle is that she has published 8 novels of fiction and won 4 literary awards. We're lucky to have you here, Michelle. Thank you for joining us for Ladies' Night Out.
Great, thanks, Emily. Glad to be here. So I approached tonight's speech tonight basically as an introduction to our new service line and why Summit Pacific thought it was the right new venture for our facility. So why GI? Significant need was identified in Grays Harbor County. The nearest facilities are currently in Olympia, and the wait times to get into those facilities can be 3 to 4 months. So we're offering specialty services that are valuable to our patients, and they're not conflicting with services patients would prefer to receive in larger cities. And it makes sense for Summit in the sense for our market analysis indicated GI would be a prime service needed to the community. The reason is because colon cancer is the 4th most common cancer diagnosed in the United States, and it's the 3rd leading cause of cancer deaths. So Summit wants to have a better experience for patients in our community with less travel to get their GI procedures, particularly in consideration of sedation and the demands of bowel prep. Colon screenings are a valuable preventative tool that often goes undone as these resources are not readily available in our community. So our process is the E-team decided this was the best fit for what our community needed and made the investment and decided that we would start our GI line. So in 2016, I was onboarded as the project manager, and we began our planning and recruiting phase. The hiring really started and took place throughout March, April. Supplies and vending, the vendors were vetted, and then the GI clinic officially opened July 2nd. Our first go-live procedure on the hospital side was September 10th. Currently, our provider is doing procedures every Friday. As he breaks away from his current contract, he will be offering more and more days for us. So right now we're offering just our services on Fridays, and that will grow to a full-time service. Our hope is that by January of 2022, we will have a fully operating schedule with both providers. So our outpatient clinic. The first patient, as I said, seen July 2021 by Dr. Mitchell Cohen, identified the need for the MA, LPN staff to support clinic time. Clinic processes rapidly developed with clinic support team. Workflows for consults and scheduling were established. And then we immediately started getting wonderful feedback from our fee trail with a 92% positive score. Summit welcomes two brothers. We then benefited from the wonderful fact that we met Dr. Bishr Abdullah and welcomed him to our team just recently. He graduated from Damascus University of Medicine in 1989. He has been certified with the American Board of Pediatric Gastroenterology and American Board of Pediatrics since 1995. Dr. Abdullah has served residency in the Medical College of Ohio and fellowship in Riley Children's Hospital and Indiana University School of Medicine. Dr. Abdullah has provided care in the South Puget Sound since 1998. I also have personal experience with Dr. Abdullah. My own son was sick with severe GI issues a few years back, and he was an incredible provider throughout that time. So I personally can speak highly of him. Shortly after he started talking with the executive team here at Summit, he quickly let us know that his brother was interested. So after a few negotiations, Dr. Man Abdullah agreed to join Summit. So he will be with us full time starting in January. Up until then, he will offer us 1 week a month. He graduated from Damascus University School of Medicine in Damascus, Syria. He completed his residency at the University of Connecticut School of Medicine in Farmington, Connecticut. Dr. Abdullah is also fellowship trained in internal medicine, gastroenterology, and hepatology. He is board certified in internal medicine and gastroenterology. So as you can see, we did a lot of work to get the bones of our procedure up and ready to go. We have a beautiful unit, and this is taken just the week before we went to go live. So we had our first day on September 10th, and our first patient feedbacks, quotes, "I had actual fun at an appointment that always worries me. I am a return customer, and if there is anyone out there that hasn't had this done, it was a breeze, and I was feeling good and rested. Thank you, SPMC, you have done it again." Then the second one we had was the entire endoscopy and colonoscopy clinic. They treat you like royalty. Dr. Bishr Abdullah and Michael the anesthetist and all the rest. So we're really happy to have such a successful go live day. As you can see here, our wonderful CEO, Josh Martin, was giving our team, but also everyone in this organization that really took the time and effort over the course of many months to make this a successful event. So the future of GI at Summit. Summit continues to recruit GI providers to increase access for the GI service and Grace Harbor community residents. We're exploring innovative care delivery options such as telehealth visits to reduce the travel burden for our patients. The demand is strong, ensuring a strong future for GI in Grace Harbor. So I just want to reiterate the reason that it's so important that SPMC believed they should bring GI to our community is, as I said before, it's the fourth most common cancer diagnosis, third leading cause of cancer deaths in the United States. For women, colon cancer screening is just as important as breast cancer screening. Our providers work with patients to identify if there's family history of cancer, and if there is any predisposition, they will do genetic testing as well. So 1 in 24 women get colon cancer, which is 24,460 women a year that will die of colon cancer. Those are pretty staggering numbers, and again, reiterates how important it is for Summit Pacific to support this new service line. So thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. Absolutely. I can't underscore that enough. We at Summit are just so thrilled to have you here and the entire team, the new physicians and new anesthetists and new nurses for our GI line. And yes, those patient quotes really speak for themselves. So we're thrilled to have you all on board, and we'll only be ramping up even more for allowing more appointments and more procedures. So please, so everybody tuning in, please submit your questions. We've so far got no question, just a sincere thank you. Thank you for educating us. That's wonderful. I mean, it's brand new here in Elma and brand new for the most part in Grace Harbor County. So a couple of questions that were submitted in advance. What age should I get screened for colon cancer?
Yes, that's a great question. So typically the standard age they recommend to have your very first colon cancer screening is age 50. However, if there's any family history of cancer, breast cancer, colon cancer, any cancer really, they suggest that you see a GI provider around age 35 and understand whether your risks are mild to moderate, and then at that point they will decide if you need a cancer screening earlier. It can sometimes be recommended as early as 35 or 40.
Wow, okay, good to know. For all of us tuning in, it's important to know your family history too with all of these conditions, right? That can help determine your propensity for needing these screenings sooner. Let's see, someone else says, when can I schedule a colonoscopy? When can I come knock down the door and get my appointment?
Well, that's a good question as well. As I said before, we're right now, our new provider is providing availability on Fridays, so that makes it a little bit of a small window. However, by January, we should be a very fully up and running procedure suite to operate at least 4 days a week. So by then, it'd be pretty quick. Right now, it's go see your doctor, get that referral, and then you should be seen within the next couple months.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you so much, Michelle.
Absolutely.
We've got a lot of people just saying thank you. Didn't know we could do this in Elma. Terrific. Thank you so much. We are glad to have you here, and more information to come. Next year's Ladies Night Out will have even more news on a whole year of practicing GI here in Summit Pacific.
Great.
All right, well, I would like to pause for a moment for a special announcement. Many of you might not know that Ladies Night Out is brought to you by Summit Pacific Medical Foundation. Our mission as a nonprofit fundraising organization is to work independently and in partnership with Summit Pacific Medical Center, providing support that enhances health and wellness in the community. So we really do work in tandem with the medical center, but the foundation is a separate entity. Whether you received a heartbeat stuffed animal at your 20-week ultrasound for your new baby, or you visit your primary care provider on the 3rd floor of our wellness center, our new state-of-the-art building, your life has been touched by the work of the foundation. Many hospitals have women's health programs, but gifts to the foundation help ours stand out above the rest. I'd like to say that Ladies Night Out is made entirely possible and free to participate thanks to the generous donation of our sponsors who we've been featuring throughout this program. We are committed to maintaining this as a free event. However, I'd like to ask you to join me today. It's our goal to continue offering free support groups, educational events like this one, fun activities, so that we can over time build the healthiest community in the nation right here in Grace Harbor County. I would like to challenge all of us to give what we can tonight so that we can continue having these programs and benefiting the health and wellness of our community. Let's see if we can raise $1,000 by the end of tonight's program to support this crucial work. And I'd like to thank so much the participants and attendees who already donated when you registered for this free event. We had about $200 come in of donations completely unasked, so thank you so much. You should be receiving a text message from us soon. If not, please text donate to 360-284-1873, and those dollars go 100% towards Summit Pacific Medical Foundation, who supports the work of Summit Pacific Medical Center. So thank you all very much for tuning in. Next up, I'd like to thank our other newest sponsor, Ocean Spray. This is our first interaction with a national company being our sponsor, so we're so grateful to have them. And you may or may not know they're just down the road on the way to Westport, and they make the heart-healthy craisins that you'll see at the grocery store. So next time you pick those up, they might just have been made right here in Grays Harbor County. So thank you, Ocean Spray. Also like to thank our loyal friends and partners at United Healthcare. You have for those of you who registered, in your gift bags, you've got an outstanding little fold-up duffel bag from United, so along with some other great goodies. So thank you, United Healthcare. Lastly tonight, I have to mention, if you didn't already know, October is Breast Health Awareness Month. So that's why we've got pink all over the place. And I'm so pleased to welcome back Tiffany Peak and Mandy Robling, who are two of our leaders in our diagnostic imaging team. Share a little bit with you about Tiffany and Mandy. Thank you, guys. So just a little quick bio here. Won't let you get away without it. Tiffany Peak graduated from Carrington College in Phoenix, Arizona, and has been working in diagnostic imaging for 17 years. She joined Public Hospital District Number 1 in 2006 and has been with Summit ever since we opened our doors. Tiffany's areas of expertise are mammography, X-ray, and DEXA scanning. She has the privilege of volunteering for Camp Victory for Children, a nonprofit that provides survivors of childhood sexual abuse with a summer camp experience. Mandy Robling is the lead sonographer for diagnostic imaging, and she has worked at Summit for almost 5 years. Mandy graduated from Bellevue College and has been a tech for 17 years. Most of Mandy's career has been spent in high-risk obstetrics, working alongside perinatologists. Mandy specializes in obstetrics, gynecologic, and breast ultrasound. She is also a pet portrait artist in her spare time. Can't say this enough. We're so grateful to have both of you here and that you devote your passion to our patients at Summit. So thank you very much, Tiffany and Mandy, and I'll let you take it away.
Thank you for having us. So I am Tiffany Peak. I am the lead mammographer here.
And I'm Mandy Robling. I'm the lead sonographer for both the hospital and the wellness center.
And we're going to be talking about women's imaging here at Summit Pacific. So I'm going to be talking first about 3D mammography. It provides better, earlier detection for our patients. 3D is more accurate than conventional 2D mammograms, detecting 20 to 65% more invasive breast cancers. It also reduces callbacks by up to 40% compared to 2D alone. It has greater accuracy than 2D, and it's for women across a variety of ages and breast densities. And I'm going to talk a little bit about breast densities. If you are one of our patients here, you usually would get a results letter from me, and it talks about your breast density within that letter. If you look at the picture here, it shows in image A, the fatty breast. This is about 25% dense tissue. It's a lot of gray area. You can see that white little fluffy thing in there. That's what a small cancer would look like. The arrow's pointing to it. B is a breast that has scattered areas of density, about 25 to 50% dense. And C is heterogeneously dense. This is about 50 to 75%. And D is extremely dense. So what's important about 3D is that it looks through the entire breast tissue in slices. So if you look back at A there, that little cancer, if that would have been in the extremely dense picture there at the far side, you wouldn't be able to see that in 2D alone. It would be masked in there. It would just look like that dense tissue. The 3D will pull that out, the radiologist looks through the breast as if it's a book, and they can see that cancer within that. So that's why it's more accurate to be using 3D imaging. And like I said, like if you think of the breast as a book, 2D would be like as if you were looking down on a cover. 3D is opening it up and looking through page by page. So that's how the radiologist can look through the tissue and find what could be inside there. So there's different services we provide with mammography is first off is screenings. And we do self-referred screening mammograms here. That just means that you don't have to see a provider with an order to be able to be seen with us. So if you just know it's been a year or it's time for you to have a mammogram, you can just call and schedule or just walk in and we can see you. We just need to make sure that you have a primary care provider who can read these. We do walk-in screening mammograms. We are open from 8 to 4:30, so you can walk in anytime during the day and we will squeeze you in order, no pun intended, squeeze you in to get these done. And then we also have scheduled screening exams. So that's if you want to, of course, have a specific time that you want to come in and be seen. I have two pictures here. The one on the right is what our machine looks like, the 3D machine. What makes it nice too is that the paddle, the part that comes down on the breast, flexes. So that pressure is a lot better than it used to be. So it doesn't feel as tight and it's a more comfortable experience. And then we also provide the Bella blanket, which is that pink thing that they're sticking on the machine there. That provides a barrier. And so most patients, when they come in, they're sweaty, nervous. They can stick to the machine. So this barrier creates a nice soft surface, and so you don't stick to it, and it's not as cold. And then we do diagnostic mammograms. These are scheduled because we work in conjunction with ultrasound, which Mandy's going to talk about here in a second. These are long exams because of the two of us both working together to get the two different studies done, and we send these to the radiologist in Olympia, and everything's tele-remote there. So we send our images over, they look at them, and they call us back, and we know right then and there kind of what their thoughts are with the patient. There's two different reasons why you'd have to come in for a diagnostic mammogram. One would be for additional views. So if you just had a screening and get a call or a letter saying that you need to come back in, that's usually why, is because they see something that they want us to look at more in depth. So that'd be considered a diagnostic. And then of course, if you have a new concern, like a lump or pain, nipple discharge, or skin changes, that would be considered a diagnostic. So after we do our exams, these get sent off to the radiologist and is read, and the radiologist calls us back and lets us know their thoughts. And most of the time they talk to the patient as well. And sometimes the radiologist is going to recommend a biopsy. So just in the last year, we started scheduling biopsies with cell sound. So if you are one of the patients that get told that they might need a biopsy, we call cell sound and schedule that appointment with them while you're there in office. This is dependent on the provider and insurance, as long as that we're working in conjunction with them. If your provider is, then we can get that scheduled right away. And this is just more beneficial because before that, the patient could be told that they need a biopsy, but then we had to wait for the provider to send an order or the pre-auth to referrals, and then that goes to cell sound, and that whole process can take up to 2 weeks or longer sometimes. So we kind of cut out the middleman there and just schedule while you're here. Another new thing we're kind of offering is Eliquil tabs. This is a little aromatherapy sticker that if you're nervous, it helps alleviate some of that nervousness and anxiety just from the smell itself. And this is a new thing we just got, and we've only had a few patients use it so far, but we've gotten good feedback from them for that. Next, I'm just going to talk about some mammography facts. So following the American Cancer Society's guidelines, women should start getting yearly mammograms at age 40 and continue as long as a woman is in good health. Half of all fatal breast cancers in women are diagnosed in their 40s. And women ages 40 to 49 years who do not get screened frequently are 3 times more likely to need a mastectomy and 2.5 more times likely to need chemo. And this means that, the younger you are getting diagnosed with breast cancer, the more aggressive it is. So that's why it's really important that we get people in here at age 40 and getting it done at least yearly or every other year so that we can get a good baseline and follow through, as late as you can to get these done. And again, thinking back to the breast density, the younger we are, the more dense our breasts are. So, and again, if you might have a little cancer in there, you can't see it very well, unless you're coming in and getting these 3D mammograms. So it's really important that you get started early. 75% of women who develop breast cancer are not considered, or they are considered average risk, meaning they have no family history of breast cancer and no risk factor other than the fact that they are women. So we have a misconception with this because there's so many women that we see come in later on saying that they don't need to come in for a mammogram because they have no family history, or they don't need to start at 40 because they don't have any family history. When really 3 out of 4 women who have breast cancer have no family history at all. And the biggest risk factor is just that we're women. Women 75 years of age and above reap the same benefits of early detection from screenings as younger women. So if you're a woman who's been getting a mammogram every year and you turn 75 and finally, or at some point you have breast cancer, but we've been following you this whole time, that's a new breast cancer. It's small. They can go in and they can take it out. You can get treatment, and it's just as if you were younger doing it. So as long as you're able to move and get out and about, you should be having your mammogram be done.
We often use breast ultrasound in conjunction with mammography if there's a finding on the screening mammogram that shows an abnormality that the mammogram can't quite tell what type of abnormality it is, whether it's a solid lesion, calcification, asymmetry in the tissue. The patient will often come back for supplemental images with also mammogram to determine what type of lesion it is. It's been misunderstood that breast ultrasound is a screening tool alone, and that is absolutely not true. Breast ultrasound should not be used as the only screening tool for breast cancer or any breast issues. Over the age of 30, you should also have a mammogram in conjunction with the ultrasound. Ultrasound is very safe. It is non-invasive. It does not use radiation. It uses sound waves to detect soft tissues in the body. We also use ultrasound in biopsies often. We don't do them here, but Southsound uses them to guide their biopsies in real time. It helps them locate the mass and get the best tissue samples.
So next, I'm going to be talking about bone density and DEXA scans. So bone densitometry is a simple and quick scan used to determine a patient's bone density. Specifically, it measures bone minerals and bone density to determine if a patient has osteoporosis and to monitor patient reactions to osteoporosis treatment. It's a quick 3-minute scan. It uses low-dose x-rays. And I typically look at the spine and hip, or sometimes a wrist. It just depends. If a patient has had a hip replacement or a spine work, then I wouldn't look in an area that might have some metal. But I'm always looking at 2 places in the body. It's non-invasive and painless, and there's pretty much no patient preparation. We ask that patients try not to wear metal and not to take calcium 24 hours before, because that little calcium pill can show up in the stomach, and that's right over the spine. This picture shows what my machine looks like. It's a soft padded table. Again, the scan's really quick. I have sponges for under the knees, and this is another piece of little equipment to just put the body in the right alignment. The reports that I run also include a Frax Assessment. And this is important because women undergo a rapid bone loss around the time of menopause due to the hormonal changes. We've heard a lot about hormonal changes tonight. This bone loss slows down during postmenopausal years, but it doesn't stop completely. 1 in 2 women over the age of 50 will have an osteoporosis-related fracture in her lifetime. So now we have a risk tool for evaluating fracture risk, and that's the Frax Assessment. The tool was developed to evaluate a patient's 10-year probability of a hip fracture or spine fracture. So that's included in the report that goes to the provider, and they can use that in order to keep patients doing what they need to do in order to have good bone health. So bone is living tissue that is constantly being broken down and replaced. Osteopenia and osteoporosis occur when the creation of new bone doesn't keep up with the loss of old bone. The honeycomb appearance of bone signifies bone loss. The less dense bone is weak and brittle, so brittle that a fall or mild stresses such as bending or coughing can cause a fracture. So if you look at these pictures, you can see the one on the left. That's probably a spine vertebrae that has osteoporosis. It has a Swiss cheese-like appearance, very big holes. The bone that is there is very thin and brittle. The one on the right is normal bone. It's dense. The holes are a lot smaller, a lot more bone there. So what can we do to keep our bones healthy? I tell my patients, I give them the trifecta, which is staying active, doing some weight-bearing exercise is really important. You can be walking, climbing stairs, lifting small weights. They don't have to be heavy. They can be 3-pound weights. Just anything will help build that bone. We also need to be getting enough calcium and vitamin D in our diet. So we need to be eating the calcium, drinking it, however you do that. And we need to be getting vitamin D daily. We don't get enough of it here in the Pacific Northwest. We just don't get enough sunshine. So a lot of people take a vitamin D supplement. And then there's some people who are put on drug therapies, and that's if they are already having some osteopenia to osteoporosis. And those therapies will either slow down the breaking down of bone, or it'll help build it up. And those are typically only taken for a couple of years, and they would need another bone density test just to see where the bones are at. Once your body has started to lose bone mass, these measures will still help preserve the bone and slow the progression toward osteoporosis. So the next part I'm going to talk about is body composition assessments. And this test is also done on the bone density machine. So instead of me just taking pictures of the back, I scan the entire body. An advanced body composition exam is a quick low-dose X-ray exam that measures the 3 main tissues of the human body: bone, fat, and lean mass. This exam may help your health professional assess what level of exercise or intervention is needed to maintain a good ratio between fat and lean muscle. So this is suitable for those on weight management programs. Knowing where the fat is located may make a considerable difference in health outcomes. Too much fat around the abdominal organs, such as the liver, can be much worse than excess fat just under the skin. The fat around the organs can contribute to type 2 diabetes and cardiovascular disease. This test is also commonly used as a measurement tool by athletes in training or patients in rehab to monitor neuromuscular changes in training over time. If you look at that picture there to the right, it shows a visual representation of what I see and what I go over with patients. So this is a person who has came in like 3 times. So if you look at the body on the left, it shows different colors. So fat's yellow, red is muscle, and blue is bone. So you can kind of see this person has some fat surrounding their midsection and in their thighs, a little in their shoulders. So once people start a weight loss journey or starting to work out, I recommend people to come back in every couple months. And this person in the center, you can see how that fat is starting to shed off. It's getting to be a little bit smaller, and then the body on the far right, you can really see how that fat has slimmed away there. So this is a good test to have for a good visualization of the body. So the reports that I print off look like this, and I know you can't read them, but I'm going to go over the legend because this is going to kind of tell you what all I go over. So number 1 is the visual image of the precise location of bone, lean mass, and fat mass. Number 2 is kind of like a graph that's gonna plot your body fat percentage compared to somebody in the same age group. 3 is where it gets more interesting, and that is where it's gonna show your body composition, your fat mass, your lean mass, down to the gram per body region. So it's gonna show your left arm, your right arm, your torso, your abdomen, your legs and hips. It shows all of that. Number 4 calculates the totals of those. And number 5 estimates the amount of visceral fat. That's that fat surrounding your organs. And it gives us a little range there. So that number can help guide us to see if it's a higher number, if you're going to be more at risk for some of those things. So this is considered a baseline, the baseline report that I would get if you were to come in one time. And so like I said, sometimes patients come back in every 3 to 6 months to see where they're at. This is the second report that would print out if you were to come back. And this is where it gets more exciting because this shows your results. So in number 1, it's going to plot your body fat values over time. Number 2 shows your percentage of body fat over time. 3 is your fat mass, and that's showing the grams. So it'll tell us exactly how many grams of fat you've lost. And number 4 is your lean mass. So it's going to show if you've lost muscle or gained muscle, again, down to the gram. And then number 5 down there at the bottom, that's where it shows you in your body over time. And it's a good good visualization to see exactly where you were and where you're going. And this is really important because I know of people that are trying to lose weight and, they're a slave to the scale. They want to get on the scale every single day, and you might have some initial weight loss. And then as soon as it stops and plateaus, you get discouraged. So a lot of people don't remember that muscle weighs more than fat. So things could be going on in your body that you're just unaware of. And this will help you realize, what you're doing is actually working. So this is a really good tool to use if you're trying to lose weight, if you're trying to gain muscle. For people who've had weight loss surgery, this is a great tool for that because a lot of time, with that sort of surgery, you're going to lose a lot of weight quickly, and sometimes you will lose muscle, and this will show us if you're losing muscle. We don't want to see that. You want to make sure you're at least maintaining your muscle, if not getting more. So next I'm going to hand it off to Mandy.
So I'm going to talk a little bit about ovarian cancer screening that is available to everybody. Started with a little bit of background on ovarian cancer. It affects the woman's ovaries and surrounding structures of the reproductive system. Rarely causes symptoms in early stages. This is where it becomes tricky with the risk factors. Second most common gynecological cancer in the U.S., and the average 5-year survival rate for all types of ovarian cancer is 49%. Ovarian cancer screening, it's a combination of everything, kind of with the breast cancer. So you want to make sure you're getting your regular women's health exams with your primary care provider or OBGYN. Don't confuse the pap smear test with an ovarian cancer screening. During the pelvic exam, they will manually examine your pelvic organs, and if they feel any abnormality, then they will most likely refer you for an ultrasound. If you start to have symptoms, which usually the symptoms mimic a lot of digestive issues like stomach aches, cramping, irregular bowel movements, you can also, what they will do, once you see your provider, they'll move you on to other screening tests. Most likely the first stop will be a transvaginal ultrasound, and I'll go over that a little bit later. They will also do a blood test, especially if there's a strong family history of ovarian cancer. And surgical biopsy would probably be the last stop after multiple other modalities may be used. After a transvaginal ultrasound, they may use a CAT scan. They also may use an MRI. How do you get ovarian cancer? There's multiple risk factors, but the top ones are middle-aged to older women, mostly postmenopausal women, very close family history of ovarian cancer, sister, mother, grandmother. It could be a genetic mutation or abnormality in the genes, prior personal history of certain cancers such as colon cancer, endometrial cancer. Some ethnicities make your risk higher. Having no children or children late or have not given birth or given birth later in life can also increase your risk. Hormone therapies after menopause can also increase your risk. And then there's also environmental, obesity, smoking, so don't smoke. So what is transvaginal ultrasound? Often when I get patients in for these pelvic ultrasounds, they're not really explained that it's a two-part procedure. We do begin on your belly first with some pictures, not vaginally, but on your belly first. And then once we complete that part, we do what's called the transvaginal ultrasound. And we use this camera that you can see to the right in the picture. We call it a wand, can be compared to a wand. It's a little bit bigger than a tampon. This camera is inserted vaginally, and it gives us pretty much an up-close and personal picture of your uterus, ovaries, and the surrounding structures, say fallopian tubes, some surrounding bowel. Why would we use transvaginal ultrasound? Ultrasound is the first test if there is a problem with the ovaries suspected. It's the least harmful. Well, it's used sound waves, so there's no radiation, so it's safe. I don't want to say it's non-invasive, although you will see often that it says it's non-invasive, but we are inserting the probe vaginally. It can't tell if there's something found on the ovaries, if it's malignant or benign. It only shows the sonographer, me, what type of characteristics it shows, whether it's solid, it's cystic, does there increase blood flow, does it look lobulated? So these are the terms that we would give to the radiologist, and from there we would go on to biopsy or other interventions. How would you prepare for the ultrasound? You're going to be asked to drink a lot of water and hold it before you come in. Once we do what's called the transabdominal scan, which are the pictures we take on your belly first, you will get to release your bladder, and then we set you up for the transvaginal part. So on the picture to the left, it kind of shows you exactly how this exam is done. You can see exactly where the sound beam is right up against the cervix of the uterus and gives us a really up close and extremely good look at the uterus and the ovaries. So once your bladder is empty, we undress you from the waist down. We set you up very similar to a pelvic exam with your physician. The camera is covered with a hygienic cover with some lubricating gel. The camera is inserted vaginally. Their pressure is normal. I just tell patients if it's extremely severely painful, then always communicate that. There's a series of angles that are used, and what's really good about technology today with these ultrasounds is these cameras are made to where in the old days of ultrasound, we had to use this wand and move it side to side, up and down to try to get good pictures, which is often very painful for women, especially older women. Now these cameras have a feature where it's got an internal motor where we don't even have to move the wand at all. It just moves the image for us. So it's just directing the image from the tip of the camera without us having to do any more manipulation or pressure on the patient. So in the end, or to sum it up, because I'm not very good at these speaking things, if you suspect that you have or if you have a high family history or large family history of ovarian cancer, I think that it's best to start getting screened. Always speak with your physician. If you're feeling any symptoms, obviously speak to your physician. But we do offer them here, and we are happy to see you. That was my awkward talk for the night.
There I am. Well, thank you, Mandy and Tiffany. This was, again, just so much information. I've just learned quite a lot. And I had a question written down about when do I come in, but you just answered it, Mandy, so thank you. I have a couple others, so please, folks in the audience, please send in your questions in the comment section. I think some are coming in. A couple that were emailed to us in advance. Let's see, what if I'm under age of 40, but I have a family history of breast cancer? Can I come in early for a mammogram?
Yeah, so we tell patients, so say if a mom had breast cancer at the age of 40, then we would have the daughter come in at the age of 30.
Got it.
That's usually about 10 years prior. But providers now are going to kind of direct these patients to get some genetic counseling and genetic testing done. And that will help them decide if they really need to start with mammography. Because again, it is radiation. So we don't want to start too early. And then before the age of 30, the breast tissue is so dense, we really can't see through it. So it's not the first line of defense under the age of 30, really.
Cool. Okay, very valuable information. With regard to the bone density, someone was asking, is loss of bone density more prevalent in women than men?
Yes, it is. So we would always, providers will recommend that as soon as a woman is postmenopausal, that's when they should come in for their initial screening. And then depending on what that report says, it's going to be every 2 to 5 years. Now, men, we can see them coming in at about age 70, but there are risk factors that would have it so they can come in earlier. So some of the risk factors would be if they're a smoker, if they're taking any sort of steroid or any sort of cancer treatment or having thyroid issues where they're taking medication for that. Those are some risk factors to where they would come in earlier for that.
Okay, great. Thank you, guys. And then one more question about mammograms again. For women who don't have a family history of mammograms of breast cancer, and they're just from age 40 on regularly getting their mammograms, how often should that sequence be with no family history and no warning signs?
We and our radiologists still follow the American Cancer Society's guidelines, and that's just every year. Insurance pays for it every year. It's just a good thing to be doing yearly. Now, some patients and providers might think differently, and they can take a personal approach with that, but we still recommend every year.
Okay, great. Thank you. We've got a lot of thank yous. Thankful to attend. This is so helpful. So it doesn't look like any extra questions, but we're just grateful for both of you and the work you do every day serving women of our community. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having us.
All right. So moving on, that concludes our program, but we do have a couple more things to mention. Last but not least, more raffle prizes. So we'll spin our wheel. The next one here is a gift basket from Positive Promotions. It includes a t-shirt, a drink tumbler, calendar, and extra fuzzy socks. This nice big gift basket with everything inside. And our winner is, Tara Lovell. We'll give you a call tomorrow to arrange your pickup. Thank you. Our next one is a very wonderful, we just gave these out this year to our donors, a golf umbrella. It's disassembled right now, but it's, as you can tell, it's quite large, and it has our Summit Pacific Medical Foundation logo on it. And the winner for that, spin this a little more here, from the Golf Umbrella Summit Pacific Medical Foundation is Tricia Stevenson. We'll give you a call tomorrow to arrange your pickup. Thank you, Shannon. And one last gift here is a Pamper Yourself Kit. It comes with a cosmetic gift bag, notebook, fluffy socks, and much more in this box. And we'll see who's our winner. last winner of the night, Joy Iverson. And I have to mention, Joy, this was just a complete fluke that it was you, and we're so lucky. Joy is the person who first founded this event way back when, and we're so grateful to have you with us every single year. So congratulations, Joy. We'll give you a call tomorrow morning. There we go. All right. Well, what a fun night we had, and definitely learned quite a lot of information. I have just received our information here on our ask for donations, and thank you all so much for helping us reach our goal of $1,000. This, like I said, is the first time we've asked for donations in Ladies Night Out, but this is to continue to maintain these free events and educational programs for our community. Summit Pacific is devoted to educating each and every one of you about not only the services we provide here, but the ways in which you can help enhance your own health at home. So thank you so much to each of our speakers and to each of you for donating to support the work of Summit Pacific Medical Foundation and Summit Pacific Medical Center. Thank you for attending Ladies Night Out. Thank you again to Amerigroup and Vaughn Company for being our presenting sponsors once again. Hope you enjoy your evening.